How you doing, guys? Malik over at Modern Pawn. The next chapter of this sharpening series is going to be on the Wicked Edge. The Wicked Edge sharpening system is a very cool product. Ever since I've used it, I would say I probably use this system more than I use any other system. If high-end pocket knives like this Hinder are your thing, this thing is a must. The Wicked Edge really does pocket knives better than any system that I've ever seen. It has a bunch of really key advantages. We're going to go over some of those things. These are some of my EDC knives, and all of these I sharpen on the Wicked Edge. So if you're the kind of guy that likes screaming sharp knife in his pocket, so it goes back and to touch up his knives constantly, the Wicked Edge is really, I don't think there's anything on the market that gets close to it as far as high-end pocket knives. One of the other key benefits to this is that it's pretty clean. It doesn't take up a lot of space. It's a platform like this, and then you've got your different grit stones right here. The basic system is a base that you would mount yourself, and it has a slightly different set of arms, not quite as sturdy set of arms as these arms right here. This is the upgraded set of arms for the kit. I like this setup right here. This is I don't know, some kind of paper stone or I don't know, stone base. It's got some heft to it, some weight, so this thing stays stable. It's got the clamp, the arms, and then matched stone sets. So these paddles right here, they're clearly marked, like this is 800 and 1000. The stones that it comes with, depending on what kit you buy, and there's different levels of kits that you buy when you get the Wicked Edge, they come with diamond stones. So these are diamond impregnated metal plates that start, I think the basic kit comes with like the 100, 200 set of stones, the 400, 600, and the 800, 1000. It comes with these three sets of stones. You can expand the set to a coarser set of stones if you really have some metal material removal you have to do. This is a 50 and an 80, really gritty, coarse bastards. I mean, these really hog off some material very quickly. You got to be kind of careful with these because it could take a while to reduce the scratch pattern if you start out with those guys. They also have some accessory ceramic stones. These are, I don't know exactly who makes this ceramic, but it to me seems very similar to the Spyderco Sharpmaker ceramics. There's a white and then kind of a grayish brown side, and they're calling it a 0.6 micron and a 1.4 micron size. I don't know exactly what grit these are technically, but they are higher grit than the 800 1000. So the 800 1000, it's kind of like the next set, so to speak, after the diamond progression. From there are a couple of different strops available. These are balsa wood strops. It's basically a little thin sheet of balsa wood set into the paddles, and the way these paddles go, they go like this, and I'll show you how this thing works in a second here. You have balsa wood paddles, then you have, I think this is a horsehide leather paddles right here that you impregnate with diamond paste, and then you have a set of, this is a kangaroo leather strops. So it's like a really thin, I don't know, it's a really thin little sheet of leather that has a aluminum backing on it. So they put like a piece of aluminum and then a really thin sheet of very fine leather. The kangaroo leather is a very popular high-end stropping material. So all in all, I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 different stone sets for this Wicked Edge, and I can put a screaming edge on a knife, like really just unbelievably screaming sharp edge on a knife without any problem. So without any further ado, let's sharpen a knife here. This right here is a Les George a VSEP, I think is the name of this knife. Really nice knife maker, custom knife maker. This is kind of his mid-tech line right here. This knife I've been carrying around for quite a while, and I have some little micro chips along the edge. I don't know if you can see those some little problematic microchips, probably from me misusing this knife, not using it as just a cutting tool, and probably misbehaving and doing stuff I wasn't supposed to do with it. Okay, so first thing we need is the Allen wrench. I lost the factory Allen wrench that it came with. It had an Allen wrench that would hide right in this little pocket right here. I lost it a long time ago, but no big deal. Allen wrenches are cheap and easy to get. So I set the pins in there. I kind of, on a knife like this, I would use the stud as the stop point. That's generally what I do with a lot of these knives, unless it's really long. I'll use approximately the stud as the stop point, and we'll touch the pins, and then we'll go in with the Allen wrench and we'll tighten the top Allen wrench first. Okay. So I'm just going to snug it up. I'm not going to crank down on it. This bottom Allen wrench, then as it expands, it really puts the pressure on there. So this one you don't need, again, to go crazy. That ain't going anywhere. So the blade is very vertical. It's not laying over left or right. One of the issues with this system is if you have a knife that has no flat. Like, see, this knife's got a little flat spot right here. This one's got a little flat spot. This one's got a small flat spot. This one's got a very small flat spot, but it has a pretty good sized flat spot right here. If it doesn't have a flat spot like on this knife right here, the grind goes all the way up. It's flat ground all the way to the spine. When you clamp this in there, you have to be cautious. If you clamp it in there, sometimes it has a tendency to want to lay left or right, and you have to be mindful of that. So you adjust these two screws until it's nice and vertical. One of the problems with this system is this style of knife. This isn't a very common grind, this flat ground all the way to the spine kind of knife. You're not going to see this a whole lot, but if you do see this, it can pose an issue. Sometimes, like this knife right here, it's flat ground to right here. That goes all the way up to here. What I'll do is I'll put a little bit of that clamp on this area right here, and this right here is flat enough, it'll give me a good bite on a knife like that. Okay, so now that we got this clamped up, it's nice and snug in the jig, we have to find the angle. So we're going to pretend for a second that this knife has never been sharpened before. It's a factory edge. I don't know what the angle is on the bevel. We're going to take our trusty Sharpie marker, and we're going to put a mark with the Sharpie on the edge. Okay. Right now, this little bar has markings on it, 15, 20, 25, and 1-inch markings, and it has corresponding little detents in the front right here. So it will set the angle to within 1 degree. You don't need to get much more technical than 1 degree. What I will do once I have it chalked up, and I'm guessing at the 2020, it's probably pretty close, I will go to like the 1000 grit diamond stone, and I will stroke 1 time on the edge. Now, when you buy one of these systems, it too comes with some instructions. Watch the instructions. I think there's some links on the internet to watch it. I will then stroke it 1 time on that black mark to see what happens. If you notice, the majority of that black mark came off with just 2 very light strokes. The whole black mark came off, which means I met the edge. So if when I stroke it, the black mark only comes off at the very, very edge, that means I'm probably like at a 25 when I need to go to a 20. If it comes off at the back side of the bevel, I'm too steep. I'm like at a 15 when I need to go to a 20. And you just move it in and out until you find where it takes that edge off, that marker off real quick and easy. Okay. This knife right now, it's sharp, but I don't know if it would shave. It's been used pretty good. It definitely has some problems up here, some chips, some visible chips to the naked eye. So we're going to have to take a little material off this knife to get it sharp again. So we're going to start with the 100 grit side. So color coded, 100 grits. These go on here like this, okay? And if you read the directions, they want you to start with the stone all the way down and at the rear of the knife, at the chin of the knife. And then you're going to push forward to the tip of the stone and then reset to the other side. And you're going to do this over and over again. So long strokes. If the knife is a little long, you might not be able to get the whole knife in one stroke, but you want to get most of the knife and then the rest of the knife, so that you don't grind the knife with inconsistency. So what I do, and with sharpening you'll find out everybody has their own technique that you'll vary a little bit. So what I normally do is when I'm setting the bevel, I'll work one side more than I'll work the other. So I'll put down one paddle all together and I'll look on the opposite side of that I'm grinding. So I'm going to watch this side and I'll be able to see any chips or anything like that to start disappear, and I'll start to see a burr forming. If you're not familiar with what a burr is, and there's like a little bit of material that it's like flashing on a casting, like a little bit of material gets like pushed off and over the edge, and it'll fold back and forth as you grind the knife, and it needs to come off eventually. And it's sometimes impossible to see, but it's easy to feel. And the way you feel for a burr is if I'm grinding on my right side, the right side of the knife, I will touch the edge away, like going away from the edge, and I'll feel it. And sometimes you can use your fingernail and you'll feel it. No, so there's no burr yet. Well, actually there's a little burr started right there. So I probably didn't meet the angle perfectly on this side. No big deal. We'll regrind this edge. So if you notice, I kind of double stroked it right here because that's where some of the chips are. I'm going to take off. I got to take off enough material to remove those chips. So you're going to sharpen it till you start feeling that burr on one side, and then once you got a burr on one side, we're going to try and get the burr to go to the other side, all the way down the edge, from the chin all the way to the tip. With this system right here, as long as you hold on to these paddles, you're not going to cut yourself. So the danger in this is if you let this thumb start creeping over, you know what I'm saying, and you come back, it's going to land right on the edge. So it's got these little finger grooves. If your fingers are in those grooves, you'll be safe. Now, if you do any down strokes, you got to be real careful again. Because if you come off, you know what I'm saying, when you're first learning these, to use this system, I normally suggest one stroke, reset. One stroke, reset. Stroke, and reset. It's the safest way to do it until you get comfortable with it. The learning curve for this system is pretty quick. You'll get it pretty fast. So now I'm going to check to see if I can get that burr all the way over on this side. Not yet. Okay, I've got a burr on the majority of this edge. I got no burr back here, but the burr's from the tip to about right past the curve of the belly. So I'm going to give it a couple more strokes back here. I think I got a burr all the way down the line. Yep, I got a burr all the way now. So I just pushed it back over to the other side. So basically what we're doing is, as we're sharpening that edge, we're getting that little burr to come up, and that burr folds over left and right, back, left and right, until as we refine the scratch pattern, the burr will get smaller and smaller and smaller. And then finally on the strop will take the burr off completely. So once I've done that, I'll go to the 200. And now really, after this point right here, the knife is on edge. So we've gotten the knife to an edge and developed a burr. So we got that little burr on the edge. The knife is almost sharp. It's right on the cusp of being sharp. If we were to knock the burr off and polish the edges, we're done. So the rest of this grit progression is about refining the scratch pattern and removing the burr. So I don't want a real toothy edge on this knife. This particular knife is a CTS XHP fancy tool steel that Les George uses. It's a really nice steel, and I think the polished edge on this knife does well. So we were using the 100s, the red sides. We're going to just turn the paddles over, and we're going to work this 200 and take off some of that burr and refine the scratch pattern and make it shiny, basically. I'm going to look now to make sure that I got my chips out, because that's really why I'm sharpening this knife. And I'm looking, and I think all the chips are gone. I didn't perfectly match the bevel on this side. There's still a little bit of my back bevel visible. That's not a big deal. If you're a perfectionist and you really want that edge to look perfect, you would work this side of the stone until the bevel was consistent, had a consistent scratch pattern with 100, a consistent scratch pattern with 100 on the other side, and that there was a burr that you can push from left to right. That's what you would do before you were to go on to the next stone. But this one, I've got just a little bit of remnants on the right side of the blade of the old bevel, but most of it will disappear. Now, on pressure, I'm not grinding in on the stone. Now, this is like barely any pressure. If you listen to the sound, that's like barely any pressure. I'm just barely touching it. That's still removing metal. I promise you that's removing metal. This stuff is diamond. It does not take a lot of pressure to remove the material. So I'm really just rubbing the stone on the knife. I'm not pushing into it. I don't have to do a lot of elbow grease to get the material off on these stones. And the other thing is, if you push too hard, you have a chance of moving the knife around in this vise. When you move the knife around in the vise, you change your angle and you're not going to get as sharp a results. So I'm listening to that stone. That's the sound I want to hear. It's light pressure, alternating strokes from this point on. This knife right now, stopping at the 200 grit, I promise you is sharper than almost any factory knife that you're going to buy that's like under 200 bucks. So it's already sharp, and we've just went through the first set of stones. So now we go to the 400, 600. Now the Wicked Edge has a pretty tight grit progression. It goes 50, 80, 100, 200, 400, 600, 800, 1000. So it's a little bit tighter than a doubling pattern, where normally you would have a 1, 2, 4, 8. So it's got a couple of progressions in the middle there. Like I would say the 600 and the 1000 are kind of some intermediate progressions. And as you move up the grits in these stones, the pitch of the grind, the sound that it makes, becomes softer. So again, the point now is not to remove a lot of metal. I'm not trying to reshape the knife anymore. I'm just refining the scratch pattern. I'm just trying to make it a finer scratch pattern is all I'm doing. On this, make sure you look at the knife. Once you hit about 600, the scratches should start becoming finer, where it almost looks like a frosty edge. It no longer looks like little scratches, like sandpaper scratches. It more looks like a frosty edge. And you want to make sure you're going all the way to the tip. You want to make sure you have contact and you're coming off all the way on the tip. A lot of times I see guys use the Wicked Edge for the first time. The back, this flat area right here, this section of the knife comes out real good, and the tip, it's like they just ignored it because they're coming off the knife like this. They're wanting to do this number and they're never really getting to the edge of the knife. So you have to kind of follow the profile of the knife and nice light, even pressure, and even contact all the way to the tip. Now, another thing is when you make that stroke, make sure you come back and out and don't come straight back, because you'll come right back into that, your thumb is in the danger zone right there when you're coming back. So out and around and reset on top. Out and around. And so unfortunately with the Wicked Edge system, you do have to be a little ambidextrous for it to work right. But since this stuff's all like jigged out and it's on a rod, and see, all of a sudden my little guys got loose. We didn't tighten these down enough. There's the little guys down here, you can tighten these up. You don't want those jiggling around too much. You want your angle to be consistent. You don't want these to accidentally slip out to another notch. So that's our 600ths. We'll set those down. We're going to go to the 800ths. And with the Wicked Edge, I almost always go through the whole progression and I stop when I've got the toothy level, the toothiness to the knife that I want. And on very certain knives, will I stop at 600 and then jump straight to the strop. I generally go all the way through, all the colors all the way up, skipping the very coarse, the 50-80. I only use those if it's just got a ton of material to remove and I don't feel like working too hard with the 100s. Now if you listen, that sound is getting softer. It's less gritty sounding. It's more of a sliding, sliding noise. And if you look, I mean, it's that black stuff on my fingers is metal. That's metal coming off these blade, off this blade. Now, people ask, well, how many strokes do you do with each stone? I don't know, 15, 20. You'll develop a little bit of feel for these stones. You develop a feel, you'll develop a visual cue when it looks like they're sharp. It looks like it's time for the next scratch pattern. And when you first start rubbing from one grit to the next, you'll feel the grittiness of the scratch pattern get lighter. And then all of a sudden the scratch pattern feels, the stone feels the same for the next, like 4 or 5 strokes. You're like, okay, well, I'm now at the right, I've removed enough metal to be at the 1000 grit. So I can feel a little roughness right there. Now it's gone. That side's good. Both sides are good. That's the 1000. So this knife right now, without doing anything, is a guarantee, just like super duper sharp. I mean, it'll push cut this paper without any problem. So it's already sharp. Now, is it sharp enough for what I like? No. We're gonna keep going. So these are ceramic. Be careful with them. If you drop them, you'll break them. They're hard as glass. So just be mindful of that. And these I use very light pressure, probably even lighter pressure than the other ones. So then we're gonna go to these, the white ones. Now, if you see your blade all of a sudden going gong, 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 gong in the vise, it's not tight enough. If these guys are wobbling, they're not tight enough. You want everything nice and locked down. The advantage of these systems is that they keep a super consistent edge. The other advantage of these is if you have a high-end knife like this Almar, the odds of putting an errant scratch on that badass satin finish is also really low. If you're also worried about the clamp right here, you can always put a little thin piece of blue masking tape when you clamp one of these knives down. But if you do this system right, there should be no errant scratches, and you'll be able to get all the way to a presentation grade edge without putting any accidental scratches anywhere on the knife. Now, these knives are all used, so some of these scratches are from cutting stuff. Now I'm gonna go. I'm concentrating right now, and I'm feeling. Does it feel consistent? How the stone is flowing over the metal? Yeah, I'm getting there. So that was the 2 ceramic stones. The next up are the diamond. I've got 3 different ones to choose from. These right here are used, and when you miss a stroke, you cut your leather. So these you have to be very careful with. They only can strop away. If you come back at all, it'll slice right into that leather, like instantaneously slice into the leather. So these are marked 5 micron, and when you get these strops, you get these little syringes, and they're marked. This is the Wicked Edge 3.5 micron diamond paste. It's just like a little green paste. You put a little bit on the side corresponding, and you kind of rub it in there and let it dry for a second. And once this leather is impregnated with that diamond, it sticks around a really long time. And I don't really reload these very often at all, and you can go for a long time. And now these, there's almost no noise. It's just like a rubbing noise. But basically what you're doing now is you're polishing the edge, and the fact that it's leather and it's not hard like ceramic, that leather actually, as you're coming on that edge, will actually kind of wrap around it a little bit as it's going over the edge. And since the leather gives, it's technically putting a micro convex edge at the very cutting edge. So if you don't want any convexing to the edge whatsoever, you have to stop on the hard stones. You can't go to these strops. If you go to the strops, it will put a micro convex edge on there. You won't. It's so small, you'll need a microscope or I don't know, something besides your naked eye to see the fact that it is slightly convex. But this right here is where the magic happens, is in these strops. This is what makes it super shiny and burr free, is these stones right here. And I say stones, these paddles right here with the leather on them. So this right here now is, I guarantee you, sharper than any knife you've ever bought out of the package. You can't, manufacturers of manufactured knives can't go through this process. It's too time consuming. Most knives from factories are CNC ground or they're cut on a slack belt. They spend about 15 seconds a knife in the factory sharpening those things. So that was the 3.5 and the 5 micron. I did that in the wrong order. 5 micron is first. You do the 5 micron first. 5 micron is coarser than a 3.5 micron. We'll go back to the 3.5 micron. And then I have these two strops right here. I have these loaded with, the coarse side is 1 micron and the fine side is 1/4 micron. And what I do with these is from a place called Chef Knives to Go, I buy this diamond paste. This is 1 micron diamond spray. I don't know what the base is, it's alcohol or something, but you see like that mud in the bottom there, like where I didn't shake it up? That's diamond. It's like tiny little diamond particles. And so you shake this stuff up, so the 1 micron goes on the coarse, and you just give it a little spritz. That's all you do. And normally what I'll do is I'll take the two and I'll touch them together like that. And that'll actually, doesn't look like it really did anything. This will bring the shine out like crazy on these knives. And the fine side has 1/4 micron diamond paste on it. So again, only a way, you don't want to cut your fancy leather paddles. So the final edge on this is a 20/20, a 40-degree total edge. And right now it is mirror polished. You loosen the bottom one first to take it out. This thing is like crazy wicked sharp. I mean, we'll talk about sharpness testing later in the series, but the classic is shaving arm hair, and I don't like to do the big strokes on my arm because I sharpen so many knives. I normally just try and treetop a couple of hairs. So what I don't push it up to my skin. I I can feel them grab that hair, pop them off from the top. Now, if I wanted to shave with it, I mean, almost no pressure, and it'll just shave those hairs right off. This knife is definitely very sharp, and it's strong. It's a 20-20 edge, 40 degrees total on the edge. It's a pretty shallow edge. It's not like a razor thin edge that's going to be brittle and prone to breaking. And this right here, when we go to push cut, I mean, it push cuts no problem. And what I'm doing here is I'm not stroking the knife, I'm just pushing it. I mean, it's pushing right through that paper very effortlessly. The paper test, I do the paper test almost every knife. And what I'm doing with the paper test is not to see how cool I am to cut paper. I'm pulling, after I push cut, I know it's sharp, I'm going to pull the knife through the paper. And what that's going to let you do is tactilely feel any flaws in your work. So as I pull the knife through, very gently I pull it through. I'm not trying to do anything, but I want to feel any microchips that I missed. So as I pull it through, you'll feel like a clunk, like a little hiccup as you pull it through, and there's not on this knife. So I'm using very light pressure so I get as much feedback as possible. No chips. So all those little chips that we had in the front of the blade, they're gone now. This knife is super duper sharp. It's very shiny. It's a beautiful looking bevel, and I didn't put any errant scratches on it. I didn't have to get the knife wet. I didn't have to wash it in the sink 50 times. Downfalls, I got some notes over here. Some of the downfalls. When you get to a super steep angle, like when you get all the way up into this 15 range, you'll notice I've tried to get some knives shallow enough where I was contacting the body of the clamp. So if you were trying to get a knife really shallow, like up in here, what ends up happening is, you see, I'm limited right there. I'm now on this clamp. So if the knife isn't long enough, you can't get up in here. So you kind of have to back off sometimes more than you would want to on really steep knives, like a fillet knife, something like that. The other thing is the constraints of a fillet knife. If it's a long skinny knife, very problematic with the wicked edge. When you try to clamp it in here, it doesn't hold. You don't have a lot of room to hold it, and the thing wants to flex in the vise. So when you get this thing set up in here, you know what I'm saying, you can use this top set of holes. You go to set it up in here. I've tried the wicked edge with fillet knives or thinner flexible knives. There's too much flex up here. So when you go to push on the knife, you see how that very little pressure, and the knife is just folding over. And so when you're trying to get to the tip, I mean, you're just chasing it. It's a little difficult. Now, they give you this little pin thing, and what you're supposed to do with this is you're supposed to put the knife in the other way, like this. You turn it around like this. You put this pin in here, and this little thing is supposed to help stabilize the knife tip. I don't know, like that, and I've never got it to work the way I wanted it to. So generally I use something else for knives like this, flexible knives. I wouldn't use this. I would say any knife over 7-8 inches doesn't really work on this system. A knife like this right here, this Kirisuke, it's pretty stiff. It's got a pretty firm blade. It's not that thin of a knife. It's a little long. You would have to set it up right in the middle. You can get this knife done. I would say that would be the upper limit of what I would try and use the wicked edge with. I wouldn't probably use anything bigger than this, like a a 240 millimeter Giotto, something like this. This is probably pushing it. A knife of this size, I mean, you could do it, but what ends up happening is you're really stretching when you get the knife in here to get to the tip. I mean, you're really, you know, getting towards the end of your little paddle and stuff like that. It poses some feel issues with me. I feel it feels a little more dangerous also when you're working with a knife this size, and here I don't feel quite as safe with these smaller pocket knives. I think they do better with the Wicked Edge. The other problem with the Wicked Edge is once you get it all accessoried out, it can get a little pricey. You know, by the time you get the pro arms, a base, the ceramics, the strops and stuff like that, you know, it's not cheap and easy and compact and portable like the Spyderco Sharpmaker. But if you're really serious about pocket knives and you're really serious about having them screaming sharp, and I'm talking, I would challenge any other system on the market to get like this big old beefy hinder as sharp as the Wicked Edge. I don't think anything on the market could get a knife like this as sharp as the Wicked Edge. It really is the clear choice for this style of knife. The other issue that you can have with the Wicked Edge is a heavy recurve blade. A heavy recurve blade, like these knives right here, this one's not that heavy of a recurve. What I mean about recurve is I mean when the curve of the blade goes inward. So this is an inside curve and that is an outside curve. So concave portion of the profile. This has a concave portion right back in here, concave portion of the profile. When you go to sharpen recurved on a flat stone, the problem is you don't contact the face of the stone. You're actually only contacting the outside edges. If you were to take that curve and you try and file it with something flat like this, the only spot that the blade will touch is those two outside corners. And it makes for a little bit of an inconsistent sharpening with a recurve. Now I have done this knife on the Wicked Edge and it comes out fine because the recurve is gentle enough. But if it was anything more recurvy than this, it'd be tricky. Like a Chris style knife, you know, those wavy knives, that'd be just a total nightmare to sharpen on anything because of all the recurving. But other than that, the Wicked Edge is a phenomenal system, and it comes in different levels of accessories, and the accessories can be purchased after the fact. I really like it. Again, if pocket knives are your thing, Wicked Edge is where you're at. This is Malik Afram. Stay safe.